With Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus for PS2 joining its PS3 trilogy counterpart for the PlayStation Plus Classics catalog, now is the perfect time to hype up what I consider to be arguably the greatest video game sequel ever made. Yes, I mean that.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
And I hear you. You're shouting all these games that are flashing across the screen right now, and yeah, I agree, all those are pretty amazing. But I don't care. Sly 2 Band of Thieves is better than all the rest of them because of how it compares to the first game in the series, and I'm hopefully going to be able to convince you to at least consider him. There's a ton of great videos on this website already talking about sequels and what makes them good or bad, confusing, deserve more praise, and I've even touched on this subject myself when I was talking about remakes. But what makes a video game sequel, or really any sequel across any form of media, truly great? And why is Sly 2 better than the rest of them? Is it because he knows how to jump and press the circle button better than Kratos ever could?
Oh, hells yeah.
Sly Cooper and his Band of Thieves are some of the most likable comic book boys in all of gaming. If you don't know him now, then stick around, because Sly's games are some of the most uniquely enjoyable of the mascots, and he does not get enough love. So come on in and sit down at the planning table with us, and maybe together, Sly and I could pull off this heist to steal your clockwork heart.
Are you using me to get at old Ironsides?
Yes, I am. Do you mind?
Not at all.
The platforming mascot craze is a funny thing of the past that probably deserves a bigger dissection and examination than we're going to do in this video. It's funny to think back on how the industry used to appeal primarily to a targeted and designated audience of children, because in hindsight that's completely ridiculous. But make no mistake, the mascotification of gaming was very, very real. Pac-Man, Mario, Link, Mega Man, Sonic, Yoshi, Kirby, Rayman, Bubsy, Fox, Pikachu, Croc, Crash, Spyro, Ratchet & Clank, Jak and Daxter, and of course, Sly Cooper, the most dashing and charming of them all right at the very end. To claim he's the best may seem excessive, but he can't help it that he's smooth. But who is Sly Cooper? And why is Sly Cooper? And appropriately enough, when is Sly Cooper?
I understood that reference.
Also, I've totally talked to Bentley and we've run the numbers and it says that you should like and subscribe because that way we're going to get more coins for power-ups or whatever. Subscribe. The Sly Cooper games are a series of action platforming stealth games starring our titular raccoon, Bentley, the brains, and Murray, the muscle. After Sly was orphaned due to his parents being murdered by the Fiendish Five, a group of criminals jealous of his family history, weirdly dark, I know, the three of them grew up, vowed to get revenge, and recover the pages of the Thievius Raccoonus, a hilariously named tome that details the Cooper clan's ancient art of thieving, not dissimilar from the Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Thus, the games land somewhere in between the Ocean's Heist movies and Robin Hood in terms of tone and morality. The first three games were developed and made between 2002 and 2005 by Sucker Punch Studios, a group also responsible for the infamous games and Ghost of Tsushima, and dang, that's a lot of bangers.
Is it a banger?
The fourth and final game is developed by Sanzaru Games, and amazingly enough, between the four, there aren't any true duds. But we're here today to talk about one in particular, the crown jewel of gaming sequels that deserves your love, Sly 2 Band of Thieves. Plenty of other games may be able to tout more complex stories, more interesting and dynamic controls, but a sequel is not measured by the sum of its parts alone. It's also measured by its comparison to the original and its ability to take existing material and elevate it to new heights. And that's where Sly 2 proves itself superior. But to understand why, let's look at the first game. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus was released in 2002 exclusively to the PS2, the best console of all time. Don't at me. The plot we mentioned earlier lends itself perfectly to the level design, as Sly and the gang confront the infamous Fiendish Five that stole his family honor, comprised of four uniquely characterized anthropomorphic animals with silly voices, and their leader in the notorious Clockwork, a deeply hateful and seemingly immortal cyborg owl. The team travels to the homes of each of these criminals to defeat them, reclaim the pages of the family tome, and reward Inspector Carmelita Fox with a flirty parting gift for her efforts in chasing them down. Big Riz. But this is where we crank up the Spyro and Crash comparisons to Extreme 11, because the platforming formula is on full display here. Gotta climb a pipe? Jump and press the circle button. Gotta walk along some ropes or things to avoid detection? Jump and press the circle button. You wanna flirt with death and sneak past these falling ice blocks? Yeah, you better jump and hit that circle button. All of the animations throughout the game are really crisp, and as alluded to, the level design is absolutely immaculate. Each environment basically has that Dark Souls-esque level of detail, which gives all of them their own distinct personality. And in each one, there are approximately 20 to 40 clue bottles that you have to find. Collect them all and you'll be able to unlock a power-up, ability, or silly little filter for your handy-dandy Binocular. And let me tell you, even as a grown-ass man who's played this game before, trying to find that last bottle in some of these levels is like, where the hell are you? Sly fights, finds power-ups, completes mini-games, and rides vehicles through all these different levels, even sometimes calling in Murray to run up a mountain or race for him. Face the main criminal you're going after and give him the old three-phase fight. Give Clockwork the smackdown, and you are now a master thief. There's genuinely a lot of solid, funny humor going on here and characterization, especially with how many funny enemies there are to just thwack. It's not too hard, it's not too long, and there's just so much humor and charm oozing throughout everything. It's got about 5 hub worlds and 7 levels each. If you've played one of these, you know how this works. But that's the problem. Sly is basically the last of the mascots. Despite being a good game, it's Sly 1's greatest failure. If you put this, Crash, Spyro, and Jak 1 all right next to each other, you'd be hard-pressed to spot the differences outside aesthetics. Sly's power-ups are mostly useless other than fast and roll since all enemies are a one-hit KO. The hub worlds are cute and fit the tone, but just like Spyro, they're all just little corridors with collectibles. And no matter how fun the gameplay loop is, we need minigames to break up the repetition. All of these games are platforming staples, but ultimately, this just feels like we're doing remixes of what Mario himself pioneered. And besides, isn't Sly supposed to be a thief? It makes sense for Crash to be a little demon, Spyro's a dragon, and Jak is just straight up a GTA character in his games. Sure, sometimes we'll sidle along a wall to avoid spotlights or enemies or whatever, but on our quest to get these generic-ass keys that just open the next hub world, we never actually steal anything. To repeat this formula, as Sucker Punch really easily could have done, would have been a disservice to this character. But as many other great sequels have done, the first game simply walked so the sequel could absolutely fly. I'd like to go out on a limb and say that if you've played Sly 2 Band of Thieves, then you regard it as one of the best PS2 games, and thus a possible top 100 game ever. Boot it up, hop across a dino skeleton, and immediately realize that it's better than the first. Right away, not only does the game establish that Bentley and Murray are going to be in the field completing tasks, they're going to be playable characters, and all three have dramatically different playstyles. As Sly enters the Cairo Museum, we find that he's here for the remaining pieces of Clockwork, who it's insinuated that at the end of the last game is still somehow alive, or at least all of the pieces of him have survived. And there's a whole new gang of criminals that's after him, and there's a whole new cop lady who you have to deal with. And hey, is that a whole new system of like lighting and shading? Wow, this game really looks crispy. But that's all surface level. It's one thing to add new minigames, environments, characters, tell a really good story. It's entirely another thing to fundamentally change how your game is played and not only make it more fun, but fit the brand better. Because once you travel to Paris and take on Dimitri, the best character, no context.
You think you can swing the bat? Show your bling and let me shine you.
I have no idea what you're saying, and your suit sucks.
Oh, let's dance!
You discover that there are no more linear corridors, and you now have an open world to explore. But that's not all. Call now and you'll also receive
a dedicated sneaking animation to evade enemy detection, a dedicated action to actually steal valuable loot directly out of enemies' pockets like you're playing Skyrim, a dedicated sprint button to escape crowds because now enemies take more hits. Sly has a health bar. There's an ability meter for your power-ups, limiting their use. Enemies are no longer obstacles impeding progress, instead following routes and working as a group. There's a market to sell loot and buy power-ups, thus making you have to earn those power-ups. Levels have 30 bottles each scattered throughout, sometimes very well hidden, thus making you much more familiar with the layout. Different buildings, stations, vehicles, whatever act as missions, but they all serve a purpose to pull off a heist, rather than just collect keys. Each level ends in a highly coordinated job where all three characters have to infiltrate the boss's lair, sometimes not even ending in a fight, but a getaway, like a thief. And most importantly, Bentley and Murray are constantly hopping into the field to help take down these dastardly villains via fists or tech, and also Murray sneaks around like this.
I'm adorable!
A good sequel takes characters, mechanics, world building, whatever, from a prior entry and finds a way to elevate them. A great sequel does all of that while still making it feel fresh and new. And a perfect sequel, Sly 2, basically looks at the first game, an already good one, and says,
"We can rebuild him. We have the technology better than he was before."
Sly 2 basically switched genres to something that's way more suiting for his character. It's an actual open-world heist game that stands in clear contrast to the Crash Bandicoot-style corridors of the first game. And we need to get really granular here if we want to dissect exactly what it does right, because I think even fans of the series don't really realize the lengths that this game went to improve on the first one. So first, let's go ahead and talk about movement and combat. As adorable and easy as it is to make jokes about jumping and pressing the circle button, we need to just impart how amazing it is that they took that silly little mechanic and use it now for stealth, evasion, and avoiding conflict rather than barreling towards it. In Sly 1, there were certainly enemies you could avoid if you wanted to, but outside of bosses, there isn't a single enemy in the first game that doesn't go down in one smack. But Sly 2 just shouts, "Parkour, parkour!" and encourages horizontal and vertical exploration. Sure, you can fight the baddies if you're the Murray, but Sly and Bentley are as squishy as lychee jellies, so evasion, sleep darts, and performing stealth takedowns with triangle and square is second to none. Everything has so much more mechanical purpose. Murray and Bentley aren't just playable, they're downright necessary. Enemies are tougher? Get the big boy out here to punch them. Levels are bigger, so we've got to blow up a bridge? Well, someone go say, "Hey, it's Franklin," and have him get out there, the nerd. It's such a weird reversal of something like Marvel's Spider-Man, where in that game the stealth sections detract from the overall experience. Here though, breaking up the sneakery with some turret combat, hacking bullet hell, and dancing the night away is delicious extra content.
So good.
Leading up to the final operation and heist, you hop back and forth between the boys in a logical progression. Bentley's gonna get the blimp ready to go while Murray drives the tank and Sly steals the eye. Or maybe Sly's gotta climb around a moving train while Bentley provides air support and Murray keeps up with the getaway vehicle. All of this ties in perfectly to how the levels are structured and how you get around them, which leads us perfectly to point 2, level design. We touched on how Sly 1 created all these really good looking levels for Sly to run around in, but that was all just eye candy. Climbing bones in a swamp to avoid guards is really cute, but it's still the only way forward. Later on, I'm gonna have to smack them anyway to get the stuff I need. Running around in a casino is delightful, but where's the James Bond-esque scenario where Sly puts on a suit and pretends to be someone in disguise? Sly 2 takes all of those clever level design choices and the aesthetic of the game and lets you decide how you get around the open world and approach your tasks. There are more opportunities and reasons now to hide under tables, behind walls, or trail enemies. With fewer opportunities for vaults, bottles are made more difficult to find, and the rewards are much greater. Special loot worth hundreds of coins are scattered about, requiring you to hustle them back to the hideout for a big payout. There's so much verticality, more exploration, and use of that sweet paraglider. Sly's missions are all about trailing baddies to overhear conversations, navigate dangerous booby traps, and picking the pockets of tougher guards that will smack you around if you're caught. Bentley's bombs blast booming bursts to break bridges and behemoths, and he's got darts hacking and does this shit.
You're all bitches, triple bitches, bitch, 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 hey bitch.
And though Murray no longer races and drives the van for victory, having our sweet himbo run around to throw bear cubs in a cage and lure their mama, or have a 50-man brawl is just as rewarding. And all three of these guys get opportunities to bring down members of the Claw Gang, not just Sly. In all honesty, with how much time we spend tracking these criminals, we as players learn to hate them just as much as Sly probably ever hated the Fiendish Five. But the best part about all of these different things so far is that they are in service of elevating story and character. What starts out as a simple means to finish his vengeful crusade against Clockwork quickly turns into a noir crime thriller. Sub out the vengeful Fiendish Five for the motives of the Claw Gang, a mysterious group that wants to use the Clockwork parts in their schemes. Track them and their Clockwork pieces down to destroy hate and thwart criminals, rather than enact your own form of hate upon them. Become intimately acquainted with our favorite female Interpol agents, Inspector Carmelita Fox and Constable Neela, who turns out to be the real villain of the story as she starts to frame Carmelita for all of the... Alright, I'm just gonna go ahead and admit it. Carmelita is hot as hell. Sly is hot as hell. I don't identify as a furry, but if finding Carmelita the tastiest snack in the world doesn't make me one, then go ahead and buy me a fox suit and sign me up for FurCon, because wowzers. But for real, just like the first game, the bad guys are so much fun, only here they all interact together across multiple levels and have much more characterization. And attention to detail shines through in all facets, because the phenomenal level design and gameplay is meant to drive you into that specialized approach for each boss, whether it's Murray battling Rajan, Bentley baiting Jean Bisson, or Sly getting his flirt on. And though they aren't fundamentally changed, Sly and the gang also have growth. I don't know if it's these guys' voice acting or just Nate Fox's leadership as the head of every Sucker Punch title, but the characters here are much more interesting and invested in the fight. Murray's more muscular and confident in this one, they're so much more committed to the job that by the end of it, Bentley winds up looking like Professor X in the next game. Dude, like what the hell? Why'd you gotta go do him like that, Nate? Why'd you gotta break my nerdy little boy? And though Alicia Glidewell's depiction of Carmelita just can't compare with my absolute queen Grey DeLille in the fourth game, Carmelita's involvement with the gang is adorable. And you know that in the sequel, they're gonna get together, right? Right? I don't think it's unpopular or even a contest for me to label this the best game in the series. And it's not just because Dimitri is the pinnacle of attractiveness. Sly 2 simply perfects every component of a sequel in a way that a lot of other games do really successfully, but always wind up coming one thing short on. Gameplay?
Perfect.
Story?
Perfect.
Humor and writing?
Perfect.
And the graphics? Well, it works for the style. But before we close out this video, especially since we're talking about Sly sequels, we gotta mention 3 and 4 because they are good games, but the series had run its course by the end. Sly 3 would introduce a ton of additional mechanics like disguises, dialogue options, 5 more playable characters, but the game fails in the same way as the first entry. Everything feels good mechanics-wise and the levels are exciting to traverse, but it all feels disconnected again. You can argue that gathering members of a team for the big heist at the end is in the spirit of this genre, and I would agree, but the cohesion just isn't there. The levels feel gimmicky and segmented, and none of the bad guys matter other than Dr. M. Still, it's a great game, and it deserves its own love. And Sly 4, well, look, it's got a lot of great voice acting, even if the dialogue is noticeably worse. Getting to go back in time and join up with members of the Cooper clan only previously mentioned is very clever and charming, but all I have to mention is how the jump animation is so much noticeably worse, and those that have played it will know what I'm talking about. Sanzaru Games, you made a pretty decent product, and I don't mind all of the graphical changes or the way that you completely butchered Sly and Carmelita's relationship, or especially Bentley's and Penelope's, but why'd you gotta go and mess up the one thing that Sly Cooper has to do right? How did you mess up jumping and pressing the circle button? Whew. So, look, I know that there are a lot of other games and their sequels that are undoubtedly more impressive technical achievements by themselves, but hopefully I've made at least a case on why this sequel is truly the perfect embodiment of what you want in the next title of a game. Maybe it's unfair to claim that Sly Cooper would have fizzled out if the sequel was just like the first one, but video games were changing in 2004. Dog, in 2004 we got Halo 2, San Andreas, wow, Fable, KOTOR 2, Pizza Time, and of course, Chronicles of Riddick, Escape from Butcher Bay. With Jack not being able to survive another game, or two, after 04, it was pretty clear that the landscape of gaming was changing. Shooters, RPGs, and story-driven experiences were on the horizon. You think anyone was gonna continue to be this nasty little raccoon anymore? They'd have to change with the graphics to look like this.
So far, so good. Hold down the circle button. Hold on, Sly. Sly, come in.
It's a shame that Sucker Punch and Sanzaru Games don't have any plans to revisit this series, but honestly, I don't blame them. It's not a problem of demand. It's clearly a problem with supply. Square Enix has already clearly shown us that it's a bad idea to make a lot of really small games and half-ass them to try and get as much profit. Instead, the smarter decision is to put all of your eggs in 1 or 2 really big baskets that you know you're going to give the time and effort to. And clearly, Sly Cooper is just not something that they can bank on. But even if Sly is gone for good, he at least got 3 really solid games and 1 truly revolutionary one for him to hang his cane on. My personal plea to Sony and Sucker Punch especially is just to remaster or port these games so that they are more future-proof on the PS5 and beyond, rather than having these PS2 and PS3 versions just kind of living in the streaming catalog for Sony to bury them and, oh, come on, no, don't kick me off, come on, goddammit, I already took my phone and my other computer off the Wi-Fi, don't make me kill my Tamagotchi! No, I'm sure Sly wouldn't mind if he never gets a new game. He's already completed the job and stolen a fortune that he can rest his laurels on forever. But hopefully, Sony and Sucker Punch can at least do him the favor of leaving a calling card in his name, making Sly 2 and the rest of his games available for generations to come. Everybody get in the van. Our mission is complete.
Show your bling and let me shine you. Let's dance!
Hey, hi, thank you for watching the whole video. Really appreciate it. Please subscribe and like if you enjoyed this, and I've got other content, so go check that out. Bye.
I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Tip me over and I'll smash up everything. Ah!